what's going on, gang? We're gonna get into a bunch of shit that we didn't do when we first got into lifting, or when we were trainers, or whatever it may be, and why we should have done it. So, I mean, honestly, the first one, when we like came up with this idea, the first thing that came up for me was sleep. Like, I was, 19, 20 when I first got into lifting, and when I first seriously got into lifting anyway. And I mean, I was playing music at the time, so it was always like late shows and stuff like that. On top of that, I was working, a shift where sometimes I'd be, like, I was essentially doing shift work where I'd be, closing shift and opening shift sometimes. It was just the messiest schedule you could physically imagine. Just terrible. I was never sleeping, and the implication from a lot of the fitness community is more time at the gym equals more muscle. Mm-hmm. And you don't end up realizing that, like, muscle is not built to the gym. Muscle is broken down in the gym, and at the end of the day, it's your rest and recovery and diet that ends up allowing you to, like, build muscle. And I truthfully, I have no idea what it was that finally made that click for me, but I do remember hitting that point where I was like, okay, I'm gonna take my sleep super seriously now, and like, we'll just see how it goes. And then it was like, every time I was in the gym felt like my best workout for like months. I was like, oh my God, this is
when you slept well.
Yeah. Once I started actually looking at my sleep, and I mean, truthfully, like, controlling this was the biggest game changer, was controlling my sleep routine. Mm-hmm. Most people can tell you what they're gonna do 9 months from now when they first wake up, because everyone's morning routine is the same exact thing.
Yeah, every day.
I can tell you what I'm going to be doing before bed 9 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reason that I am so good. It's funny to say this, I'm so good at sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good at sleeping. So, but it's because I've gotten that control where my body, just recognizes it. It's kind of like a trigger for it now, where it's like, oh, Andrew's doing all these nightly routines. Here we go. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was definitely a big one for me.
When it came to, like, even you just playing around with your sleep schedule and whatnot, was there anything that you found that was intriguing in the sense that it would keep you out of deep sleep?
I once heard someone say that if you have insomnia, if you can't sleep, and if we totally ignore the fact that I was like taking like 400 milligrams of caffeine like 2 hours before bed, somebody was saying that if you have insomnia, if you can't sleep, it's time to address what's keeping you up. Mm-hmm. So there would be nights where I would just sit there like staring off into space, and I remember like having that moment where it was essentially me thinking finally, and I wasn't just thinking about like, oh God, I need to go to bed, oh I need to go to bed, oh I need to go to bed, because like once you quiet that part of your mind, like, yeah, no shit, I need to go to bed, I know that. Mm-hmm. But once you quiet your mind and you kind of address why you can't sleep, your body gives you a lot of answers if you're listening. Anyway, but yeah, so that was, I kind of unintentionally at one point had a meditation practice around sleeping, and it was essentially just, I would sit down right on the edge of my bed and I would just 10 times, like as deep and low of a belly breath as I could get, just 10 times, and I would just, even just that one, like I felt myself just, hopping in bed after that, and it was like, I always would sleep well when I did that. So it was kind of funny to think that that's my first like meditation practice. Anyway, one thing I actually was wondering about with you, because we talked about this before, was you being vegan at one point in time. And there was a point where you kind of started noticing that this, might not necessarily be in the cards for you anymore. I assume there was a point where you felt really good being vegan. Is that correct, or was that?
This is a hard topic to discuss.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna step on some toes here, okay. But I was a vegan for 3.5 years straight, and it was only in probably last March, April that I decided to switch back into like a pescatarian diet. Mm-hmm. I will say almost the whole time that I was vegan, there was always like this sense of lethargy that I felt. I wasn't energized in the same way that I'd been with, even just having a little bit of fish here and there. I felt like the animal proteins were something that tied so much to energy, output. And two, like on a vegan diet, every single thing that you're intaking is basically, it's like carbohydrate, and so your body is adapting to this metabolic pathway where it's constantly getting relatively easy access to sugars, just to get it like quick fuel. And so around eating, you would get like a boost of energy, but that was never, didn't really feel like it was something that was sustainable. After like an hour, I'd be like, how am I having hunger cravings when I just ate that much food? So to me, it just like, it became really unrealistic with the goals that I had set. I had to add like a very specific amount of muscle in a short amount of time, and I was like, these calories, because of the main macros, carbs, fats, proteins, alcohol, carbs and proteins per gram are 4 calories, so that's low. With fats, they're 9. And so,
not to mention carbs break down significantly faster, so even that in comparison to like protein, protein's significantly more satiating.
Exactly.
And I mean, like let's call it what it is. Carbs are the one macro that your body can completely go without. Like you need protein, you need fat, period.
Right.
But you could never have a carb for the rest of your life. And will you feel your absolute best? No. But
would you die from it?
No. Yeah, and I mean, even like, I don't know, but I guess for, because there's one thing to clarify that is really, really important here is there are, a lot of subsects of veganism, and I think the two biggest ones are veganism for health and veganism for ethics. And it sounds like yours was something of a health choice, but from my understanding, it was kind of influenced by a partner at the time.
For me, it was like an ethical thing.
Okay, all right, I didn't realize that. So all the people, let's just assume, that there's someone who's vegan watching this, and you've got a chance to just be blunt with them. They're feeling that signal. They're feeling these moments where they're like, I feel like shit all the time, yada yada, but they still feel wrong eating animal meat. What would you say about that?
I would honestly recommend at least supplementation. At least getting a good complex B vitamin, D vitamins, or even implementing, if it's not totally out there, like finding a local farm and getting eggs, just having some sort of, complete protein in your diet that, will kind of counter out some of those other macros.
Yeah. One of the other things too, for anybody who insists on continuing to be vegan, supplementing creatine monohydrate has actually been shown to improve vegans' IQs.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard that too.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. But if I could really point, a vegan to taking any supplement that is completely non-vegan, just like if they were, trying to stick like 99% to it, I mean, a really, really good organ complex would be awesome. Like you are getting, that is arguably the most necessary part of an animal, because, you're getting all these vitamins and minerals.
Purine.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Like purines are fucking huge, and people don't ever address that.
You'd say most meat eaters don't have
exactly.
Because that's why like things like arthritis and whatnot. Those are very purine.
Yeah. One of the interesting things to me is something that we talked about in a past episode where it is mindfulness, and I feel like both of these things, because I mean there's obviously tons and tons of stuff that we should have done that we never did, but if I really took a moment and just paused and listened to my body and asked myself a few questions like, how do you feel not sleeping all the time? How do you feel, always being like hyped up on caffeine? How do you feel doing this, doing that, doing yada, yada? Like, I would have come to the answer so much quicker of, I feel like shit from not sleeping. I feel like shit always, double scooping my pre-workout, and becomes like one of those like just dumb shit with the boys things where it becomes like a game, like, oh, who can take the most fucking pre-workout? It's like, I could have taken 30 seconds and went, man, this third scoop,
not a good idea.
Getting kind of rough. But even, veganism or any dietary protocol, really, having that moment to really ask yourself, is this diet still serving me? I mean, I remember I was on keto for like 2 months, and I felt amazing for the first 6 weeks, and I spent 2 weeks feeling like absolute shit. And if I had really asked myself at the time, like, why is this making me feel so much better? It was because I had SIBO at the time. I didn't even realize it, but I was like, oh, like, my fucking bowel movements are better. I'm not gassy all the time. I'm not burping all the time. All these different benefits from like accidentally addressing a bacterial overgrowth. And truthfully, it is, again, just one of those times where having that mindfulness practice allows you to oftentimes address a problem. And what's the, I don't know if this is like mindfulness practice, yoga practice, or what, but it's the one where you like scan through your body.
Yoga Nidra.
So I remember doing that and using that as something to address like postural imbalances. But is that something that you see as something somebody could implement for themselves when it comes to assessing their diet or assessing their sleep or assessing anything really? Or is there a different way that you kind of see that people can go about that? Like, how does mindfulness, I guess, play into all these misconceptions and beliefs that we hold about ourselves and our activities, in your mind?
How does mindfulness apply to that type of stuff?
Just how does it play into it, or does it have a place in addressing that kind of stuff?
I think mindfulness, in a sense, is how you get to the root of all those things. If one was like super mindful and present, you would have an awareness of how that stuff's reacting in your body or emotions or whatever that may be. And Yoga Nidra is a very effective way to develop and probably create presence in your body. You could definitely see where tension or, Yoga Nidra is like a form of body scanning, where that form of meditation, the goal and ultimate purpose of all yoga is actually to still the fluctuations of your mind. So like asana practice, which people attribute to being what yoga is, it's like such a small aspect of it.
Can you explain what asana is?
Asana is like posture.
Okay.
So if you go to yoga class, that's the movements that you're doing.
Long, lean muscle.
Yeah, warriors and all that stuff, which they definitely have a purpose, but with their origin, their purpose was to prepare the body for meditation. And so when teachings like Yoga Nidra came about, it typically was for people that had problems with their mind fluctuating or being all over the place. People that are like, I can't meditate. Like,
so wait, the origin, I just want to make sure that I understood that right. The origin of asana was to like relax you and get you into a headspace where you could be mindful?
Yes.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
The only purpose is to prepare your body to meditate.
Wow. So the way that a lot of people use it is kind of like a bastardization of it almost.
It totally is.
Holy shit.
And that's why like most, even though
You hear that, yoga moms? Y'all hear that?
I've been a teacher for years, and I'm an advanced studies cert right now, but it's a huge part of the reason why I would only either sub or offer community classes or things of that nature, because like doing the way they want to say it, like a fit these corporate gyms where they're like, you have to be on your mat.
We gotta bleep that.
Whoops.
Continue.
Well, yeah, just like
doing it where it's just this like it's this
like you have
pump
to be
and
on your
dump
mat.
program.
Yes, absolutely. It's like you have to be in front of the class. You have to be doing the whole posture. You can't be looking around. I'm like, that really takes it out of what yoga is. It's like this exploration of inner awareness and how to like develop that, grow that, and the supreme goal is to like connect you with your true self.
So here's
self-realization. That's like the ultimate goal of yoga in a sense, and to help the mind stop its fluctuation.
So you say that a lot, and I think that's an important thing to define. What do you mean when you say self-realization? Like, if you were going to put that into, layman's terms for the 3 people watching, what does self-realization mean?
Within even like I'd say mindfulness in a sense are there are a lot of helpful tools, and in a way mindfulness can kind of help create space from you and your problems, and a lot of those, let's be honest, tend to be mental in nature. And so like with mindfulness, and I speak this just from my own experience of like going to therapy routinely, is that a lot of mindfulness practices will kind of help you create space and less self-objectification with your thinking. You have like these troubling thoughts that are kind of hard to cope with. A lot of time the suffering that's bred from that is the relationship you have with your thought. You like have this thing that's like a hard thing to deal with, and you're like, oh, that thought entered me, that's me. You
start identifying that this is
thought
a piece
is
of
like
you.
a definition of who you are.
Yeah.
When realistically, a lot of like the thoughts that like occur are based off of like sense awareness. They're things that are like coming into you, smells and things you're looking at that are creating this like fluctuating mind. And so that's where I feel like mindfulness and yoga really kind of go hand in hand. In something like yoga nidra, like we're saying, is for those people that have a really hard time like just grounding their mind, it gives their mind one thing to focus on, and it's guided. And that typically, you're literally putting that person's awareness into their body and traveling through it. And it's like that awareness is what teaches them. It could teach them that there's tension or, pain or whatnot.
This might be a bit too rabbit holey for some of our people. Shit, we're going to drop down to only 2 people listening. But you've talked a lot about like thoughts coming in and stuff like that, and I don't know if we agree on this part, so this could be really interesting. Is do you believe in free will?
Yes.
I don't.
You don't believe in free will?
I don't believe in free will.
You don't think you have the ability to choose?
I'm not 100% sure, and I'll tell you why. So this is the one single thing that still has me hung up on whether or not it exists. No. Just clear your mind right now and think of nothing. Tell me when you start thinking about something. Did it happen?
It did.
What did you think of?
I thought of saying that I could probably be a while.
Okay, so why did you decide to think that?
I felt like we'd be sitting here for like 45 minutes in silence.
That's fair. So why did you decide to think that?
And why did I decide to think that? To break the awkward silence.
So why did you decide to think that? It keeps coming back where it's like at some point in time, you go far enough back into this thought was preceded by this, was preceded by this, was preceded by this, but at some point in time, something just came to you. You had no decision. So, I mean, I'm sitting here right now and I'm just like thinking of all the things that I shouldn't be thinking of because they're not relevant to anything. And at one point in time, a red fire truck popped into my head and I'm like, why did I think about a red fire truck? That has nothing to, the color red is not even in this room.
Right.
So where does that thought come from? And being that, with that, you go into the presupposition that I didn't choose that thought. So do I choose any thoughts?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and this is something that, you know, might be a little too long for this podcast. And we can probably get into this more later on, but yeah, that is like the one question around free will that really plagues me. And man, this started out about like fitness misconceptions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And now here we are, but it's like, that is the single thing that I come back to with mindfulness and, you know, free will and all these kinds of things, is like, there are certain things in our life that we didn't choose. So does that negate the existence of free will? You know what I mean? And I suppose it's a bit more conceptual than it is something that you can lock down and hammer as like, this is an absolute, this is a fact. Because there are arguably people throughout history who claimed to have, you know, reached enlightenment, and they, you know, are completely present. They don't have thoughts come in. You could argue that that is, you know, complete control over, you know, your own self-will. But man, still to this day, when I meditate, and, you know, even someone as practiced as you, I'm sure there's still those moments where you're meditating and something just pops into your head, and you have to, you know, just kind of like breathe it away and let it come and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know, we could end up talking in circles about it, but do you kind of get what I'm saying? Just like, where does that first thought come from?
Mm-hmm. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I follow it so much.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it's, I don't know. That might be something interesting to kind of dive into more at some point in time, is seeing if there is anything in like what you study that's actually addressed that, because whenever I do try and dive into that, I always hit that dead end. But yeah, anyway, to the one person still listening,
which is Glenn, he's the videographer.
Yeah, straight up. I guess that's it. We got super off topic, but yeah, this there we are, episode 5 or 6 or something like that. So
or 4.
or 4, or I don't know, man. Episode something. Here we are. So until next time, then. Unless you got anything else.
No.
All right. We'll see y'all later.
Influence, it like controls you.
Well, that's kind of the question for it. Is, does that influence, does that thing that comes into my mind, that thought that I did not choose, does that have influence over me? Because then it's, are there other thoughts that I did not choose that I acted upon? Mm-hmm. If I acted upon something that I did not choose, is it truly free will? Or am I acting on something unknowingly that I didn't choose unknowingly? So it's like, how many of these?
Yoga would answer that question.
Okay.
It would. There's some readings that I'm delving into now that all are talking about what these different type of fluctuations are that we experience. And
I can't wait until we start getting into really weird esoteric shit.
it's gonna get deep in like 2 months.
Dude, it's gonna fucking get deep in like 3 more episodes.
Yeah.
Like,
Once this shit just